Hello, how's it going, everybody? This is the first Decrypted podcast without Ben, just Stan and I. So we're gonna make it happen. We gotta, hopefully our buddy's doing well. He's got a really bad cold and some ear stuff. So he's a trooper. He would be here if he can. I'm gonna do something in honor of him, though, and I'm gonna say, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome to the Decrypted Show. Let's go. Hello, Stan. How you doing?
Hello, Jack. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Hello, Falcor.
So Stan, hey, I'll talk about the agenda in a second, but how's it going? How's the weather in Portugal?
Yeah, we actually, this you probably noticed from engineering updates, we have lots of things happening, and I think we can talk about this later today, but the bigger thing is that Byte Phase 2, I think we realized that Byte Phase 2 is much bigger than Byte Phase 1. So lots of engineers are moving and starting to implement different parts of Byte Phase 2, which is confidentiality. Byte Phase 1 is MBV resistance, but Byte Phase 2 is confidentiality. So we're kind of moving confidentiality and privacy in front of everything. And that's a big amount of work, frankly. So everyone is really busy. And I think we are really doing something that no one else is able to do, which is taking a blockchain and encrypting some of the data on blockchain while still being able to send money, see balances, all of this stuff.
Okay, so Stan, let's save some of that powder because we're gonna get into that deep and kind of announce what Byte Phase 2 is. There's been some stuff on the forum, but I think this will be the first real, formal announcement. So as we said, we're announcing stuff here. You're going to hear some alpha secretive stuff later. That's frankly, we're an open source project, so nothing's secret, but you don't know until you know if you're not on GitHub. So hey, what we're going to talk about, we've got a couple topics. Number one, you go to the Twitter timeline today or the X timeline. There's so many tweets about this bullshit crypto cycle. People are fed up of hey, let's mint this token and do all these farming incentives and do this incentive. And then it's this circular thing of people pretending they're using a product and then sell it. Then they just sell the token. They don't really want the token. Gwart had a really good post today. He's a pretty funny guy, smart guy, posting stuff on Twitter about how this wouldn't have worked in an Uber sense. So anyways, Stan and I have some passionate beliefs about that. We're we consider ourselves, and we're very proud that we're real builders. There's a lot of other real builders out there. And I think the industry needs to shift into the real builder stage. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about privacy, why privacy matters, get into the depths of privacy. And then, hey, there may be a little Byte Phase 2 announcement, if you stick around. Also, as we go forward, I think we can talk a little bit about X402 if we have time and some other topics. So Stan, let's get into this. And this tweet from Gwart and Coinbase's chief business officer also had a similar thing of people are so sick of this kind of speculation cycle. They're ready for the real world. They're ready for real products. There's this great promise of crypto, but it's we're stuck in this VCs fund projects. No one wants to use it. So they create a huge airdrop and give tokens away to people to do things. And then people do things they don't really want to do and we never get escape velocity. So what are your thoughts on that? Let's dig in.
Yeah, Jack, I told you, I think it kind of dates me, but I've been through the first internet bubble. And at that time, it was pretty much the same. There were the startups. At that time, they were .coms. And VCs would invest in them, and then they would go IPO. At that time, there was an IPO. And I think it's not many VCs, you and me know many VCs, and they are friends and good people. It's just that the VC industry needs to make profit. And as with the dot-com bubble, I think, very much the same with crypto. For quite a long time, the way to make profit in crypto was to start an L1 and then, have a token for it. And arguably, VCs invested in those L1s. Engineers that worked at those L1s also are good people. I can name Moned. I think it's really a good engineering team, or for instance, or Insomnia. All of this like newer like L1s. But what we see is that this kind of a cycle is breaking in a sense that the venture capital guys, they're not really getting back what they investing. So we've seen it with Insomnia. We're seeing it, I think it now is happening with Moned. So this cycle is just breaking, I think. And it's a little bit over market looking for the next big thing, because the old thing doesn't work. So there's actually a good thing about this, because the old cycle is not really delivering anymore. You need to find something new. And I hope that, that's where we have this transition where new things will start happening, because, even the VCs, they understand, I think, quite well now that it's not anymore like there's L1, there's a token. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I got to say, like, as a builder, this makes me so happy. Hey, in the short term, it hurts, right? The market's getting kicked in the stomach. We wake up every fourth day. You're like, oh God, it's not fun. But hey, sometimes you need pain for growth, and I feel like we're shedding our skin. And I think if you look at history, you talk about the dot-com bubble, you talk about these other waves of innovation. The teams and projects and companies that get rewarded are ones that actually end up delivering value. And we're at this kind of, show me state and of crypto. It's like, show me, don't just, pretend you have something. And people are just like, people are realizing the model's broken, in which Stan and I've been saying this for a long time. And, Scale started early before this huge incentive program of getting people to come and do all these things. And we kind of missed that wave. But then after us, there's this huge wave of L1s and, big infrastructure projects that just never really got users to use their product because they want to use it. They're using it because they're getting paid, and people are like, hey, we're done with this. So, right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much like this. And I think it's going to change, I think also, there's another interesting question which we can discuss. I think we're actually discovering what's the actual product market fit for public blockchains. Because just to give you, Jack, an example, I have some data. So Ethereum, they increased the gas limit. So they actually bumped the gas limit. The gas limit is now 60 million, which means they can have way more transactions now on Ethereum mainnet. In fact, they can do like 2 million now per day. They were able to do 1 million. So they discovered that they actually increased the gas limit twice, and they're going to actually keep on increasing it. They want to increase it 100 times, right? So, but what they're seeing is that they increased the gas limit. The gas fees dropped dramatically on Ethereum, but the users are not coming. So on Ethereum, the fee now to send Ethereum to another person is a quarter cent. It has never been so small. Do you remember anything? I remember like we were paying like hundreds of dollars per transaction, right? Now it's actually a quarter cent, but users don't really come. And like on L2s, like Base is a great L2, I think, and fees are zero. Literally, I think Base is currently sponsoring USDC transfers at zero. Faucet transfers, it's incredibly low. It's like some negligible number of cents, not cents, but kind of fractions of a cent, right? So sending Ethereum now, sending any crypto is pretty much a zero price now. But because the public chains are public, there's not so much of a pent-up demand. So I think that's what people are discovering, and they will actually discover it also with this new public chains like Moned or Insomnia, or they see it on Solana too, I believe, is that when your transactions are public, your product market fit is limited. So the number of users you're getting is limited, the number of transactions you're getting is limited. So I think we are seeing this now is that they thought probably, okay, they're going to increase the gas limit and there will be like zillions of users. They increased it, gas fees dropped, no users essentially.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because the way this will work successfully is if the market size grows massively.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut your price, your fees down by 10x or 100x, then your market share better grow by 10x or 100x. And ideally, if you drop your share by 10 or your price by 10, hopefully you grow 100x.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is we need to grow the market. And one big issue I keep seeing is that all the hey, there's some really smart people building apps, but you look at the highest top talent that's getting funding, they're all building infrastructure and tooling and things for developers. And the answer is why? Well, it's because that's what's been making money, and that's what VCs are funding.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of really good app builders that just can't get any funding because the VC is like, I like that, but and so the problem is there's some VCs that were like, you know what, we need to go fund the app level. Let's go fund apps. And then they got burnt because the ones still doing the infra were making the money. But at some point, there's so much pain that the VCs are going to say, hey, let's go build something that uses crypto, uses AI, uses stable coins. And I got to say, I think we're early into the infra space. So I can kind of be like, hey, we were doing this before it was a problem. But I got to tell you, if I were just starting something from scratch right now, I would be building an app. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not, we're doing what we're doing. I'm really glad, but and so we can help app builders, but that's where the value is going to be created. Who's going to build the next Polymarket? Who's going to build the next Uniswap? Who's going to build the next, but these still are apps that only heavy users use. Who's going to use the app that your mom or your dad or your uncle or your aunt use that uses crypto and it uses AI and it uses next gen technology?
Totally, Jack. I totally agree, and I think it's also, in a sense, if I love the engineering team of Monad or Insomnia, but to be honest, if you take Monad and Insomnia, just the two of them, they got $500 million of VC funding, $500 million, right? And frankly, it did not play so well. This $500 million of VC funding could have supported 500 early stage startups that would do apps. So to a certain degree, I mean, it's kind of, the glass is half full and half empty. To one degree, it's kind of bad that the old thing doesn't work. On the other hand, it kind of introduces this new moment where maybe new things will start happening. So
I think we're there. It's actually exciting. And the thing is, hey, let's talk a little bit about the market too. There's this, there's two camps, the 4-year cycle camp and the 4-year cycle's dead camp. And I think, I don't believe in the 4-year cycle anymore. There's too many external factors. Now, hey, the market cycle that impacts interest rates and equities and, inflation and, money print, that's going to impact everything, obviously, but this pure crypto 4-year cycle, I think, is broken, which I think is a great thing. But and what it means, I think we're at this kind of alt low, right? This all-time low for everything. But we're reinventing ourselves, and finally, people are saying the right thing on the timeline. I don't see people promoting some airdrop. They're promoting the fact that we should get rid of these stupid airdrops and get apps people actually use.
Yeah, totally. And it's again, if you take analogy with .com bubble, it was pretty much the same. There was this period, 2002, 2003. I remember that it was pretty tough because suddenly the funding dried up. VCs didn't know what to do. They didn't understand, what's going to be the next thing. It's kind of was all very depressing. But then what happened, some startups died. It was kind of a Darwinian, I think, extinction. But then those, at some point, those that survived, they had more space, so to speak, because there are many dead startups. So if you kind of survive through the Darwinian extinction, at some point, you find very less competition. And so the new cycle starts. But to survive, you actually need to break the existing paradigms. And otherwise, you're just trying to do what other people are doing, and someone will need to break the new have the new paradigms, break the old ones. The VCs will need to accept this change, and so the entire industry will need to change. It's probably like a healthy process to a certain degree. It's
Yeah.
capitalism, you know.
Capitalism, market forces drive change.
Yeah, it's
They
basically it's
sometimes
good for the
drive behavior.
Well, it's kind of a tough place to be entrepreneur, but it's a system which is very efficient. It's very fast, right? It's really, you know, the new things fight old things, all of the stuff, you know. It has always been like, but that is always positive. I think that has been always net positive from like entrepreneurship and startups and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, so here's an interesting topic is the AI market. So I see the AI market right now following the exact same playbook crypto followed. And we are going to have a crazy AI bubble unless they get out of infrastructure and into actual app usage. Right now, what apps are used? Everyone uses just the LLM provider. You're going to go, you're going to use Gemini, you're using ChatGPT, you're using Claude, you're using the core product, but they're trying to create this whole flurry of app ecosystems and products people use. At the enterprise level, I think Google's doing a good job driving it through their Google Enterprise, their Google, you know, Work Suite product. But otherwise, like I go to these events in San Francisco, these AI events, it's all people building like core LLM, core deep tech. No one's building the fucking apps. And you know what? If they don't build the apps, they don't have all these people using their stuff on the back end. They're going to have the same flat line or like, you know, reckoning that we're having. And maybe it's just unavoidable. Maybe that's just what happens because that's, you know, infra captures a ton of value, apps lag. But if it lags too long, you have this gap.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem is actually with AI, it's actually even worse that we have in crypto because I think the worst which was the dot-com bubble because dot-com bubble, you had a .com, which was pretty much like a web server. The capital expenditures were like zero. You would need to spend lots of money on engineers and sales and whatever, but the actual, you know, like capital, it was almost zero. But with AI, the problem is that AI is almost like a utility. It's an incredibly capital intense business. It's not like a startup, Y Combinator guys, you know, 3 guys and eating like, you know, some cheap food. You need to spend lots of money every day just to run the thing. So the problem with, I think, AI, if they overinvest, these startups will start dying really fast because .com startups could cut costs, you know, like, but how can you cut costs if you are an infrastructure startup and you have a data center, which literally you need to spend like $1 million a day just on electricity. And so it's actually, VCs usually don't like capital intense business because they understand that you need to constantly like give lots of money just to keep it running. And with AI, they were sort of forced into this thing that they didn't want to do always, like capital. And now we'll see what happens. You know, I think there will be huge applications of AI, but also there will be lots of turbulence. It will be interesting to see how it plays. You know.
Yeah. Hey, Stan, let's talk a little bit more about the new upgrade, because I think, you know, this scale has, you know, built on ETH and around it and has its own operating L1 ecosystem. It's also living on top of Base now. So it affects us, but it affects everybody. Can you talk a little bit about how Ethereum, this Katsuna upgrade, how do they get, you know, how are they making these advances in different areas? And I think people are interested in that.
Yeah, so I think it's actually, there has been some development at Ethereum Foundation, which I think is really good. So about at the start of this year, there was like a bit of a soul searching for Ethereum. And I think they made really correct decisions and right decisions. And they have this new plan to make the network faster, essentially everywhere, including they want to increase the gas limit all the time, not just a single time, but, you know, regularly. And they want to also increase the blob capacity. Blobs are things that layer 2s post, like rollups post to Ethereum. So basically they have a plan where all of those, the network is going to get faster. So every some number of months, you'll get an increase in gas limit, and you'll get an increase in the blob capacity. And so the idea is good. I think they just basically in the past, you know that what happened. The gas fees used to be incredibly high, and they were like spikes. I remember like $200 transaction gas fees. So it's great, but so they're doing that. So this upgrade, there's some small things in it, but by far the upgrade is about making it faster and increasing capacity for blobs. So this part, I think they ironed well, and they will increase it even more. You know, I think it will be relatively easy for them to increase it.
Hey, tell me, how much of this is, there was always this, hey, we need to make sure every kid in his mom's basement can run an Ethereum node, which is very different than Solana was like, we're running some big ass heavy machines. You better have a lot of money, a lot of technical DevOps expertise. And then it seems like there's a little bit of a retreat from this. Every child shall have the right to run an Ethereum server. That seems like it's kind of going away with the block size increase. Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's basically, yeah, totally. It's like it happens in live, Jack. You know, like Solana was pretty successful, and so some of the things that people at the Ethereum Foundation held to be true, they still think it's true, but they've taken a bit of a more of a balanced position by seeing what happened with Solana, right? They definitely want to eat Solana's. I mean, it's a competition. Coming back to capitalism, right? And so they do want to take some of the Solana success. And so they still are talking about the previous objectives, which are also very important, having a secure network, being able for anyone to run a node, but they're relaxing things a little bit, I think.
Yeah, they have to, right? Like they're just realizing
exactly.
Otherwise, you can have the thing that anyone can run. Thing is, if you're running a super weak node and just one of them, you're not gonna like do that well anyways, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly.
So Stan, what about blobs? I think a lot of people hear about blobs, but they don't know what the hell they are.
So basically,
can you explain what blobs are and kind of what, because I know they did they added more dynamic blob access or something to try to make the blobs more usable. And
I'll start by talking about rollups. So there were always like two types of rollups: ZK rollups and optimistic rollups. And it turned out that ZK rollups were always in the future, the bright future thing. I think they remain to be the bright future thing. But in the midterm and in the medium term, by far, optimistic rollups won. And inside of the space of optimistic rollups, by far, optimism won, because there's optimism, and now Base is essentially using optimism stack, and I think also World Chain is using optimism stack. So the current situation and the medium term situation is that there's optimism stack and rollups like Base, and Base is winning definitely. They become incredibly important, and so it's basically optimism stack. In optimism stack, it's very simple, actually. Base, you submit a transaction to Base. Base processes the transaction, and then also posts it like a node on the wall to Ethereum. Ethereum does not process it in any way. It just holds it for a week. It's something which is called data availability. So everyone can check. Essentially, imagine like your bank starts like posting like all of the transactions on a wall, so people can just verify how much money the bank has, how much money each user has, and so that's what happens with rollups. When Base posts things to Ethereum is just a wall. Essentially, doesn't process this data. It just publishes so everyone can see. You can use this data and see, for instance, that Base has enough money, that they're not lying and stuff. So they're posting results of their transactions, all of the information they're posting onto Ethereum, and Ethereum doesn't process it in any way, it just like publishes it. And that's actually blobs. So blob, that's why I call it blobs, is kind of obscure thing in the sense that for Ethereum, it's just a blob, it's just a set of bytes. Ethereum doesn't do anything about them, right? For the most part, they just and that's kind of, it makes it really cheap for Ethereum to publish these things. Now, what a super important additional thing is that they make it even cheaper. Used to be that when you publish a blob, each Ethereum node would have to store the blob for a week, which would basically introduce like hard drive requirements, all of this stuff, network requirements. Now with this peer dust system, because there are so many Ethereum nodes, like 1 million nodes, whatever, they decided that's too much for every node to store all of these blobs. It's just too expensive. And they basically say, okay, let's split these blobs like in 16 pieces. And kind of basically each node like stores just 1/16 of the piece, but there are many nodes. So even like you out of 1 million, you take 1/16, it's like whatever, like 50,000 nodes hold this particular piece. And then if you want to check things and you want to get this information, you need to now connect to many nodes to 16 and like assemble the pieces. Your life kind of becomes a little harder, but then it becomes 6 times cheaper for the network, and the network can actually store 16 times more nodes. The bandwidth, all of this becomes like 1/16, which is, I think, it's a very simple solution, but very reasonable. And by having this solution, essentially, they will be able in the future to scale it to pretty much any number, because ultimately it could be 1/16, 1/256. So this data publishing business that Ethereum has can actually scale a lot. And they actually want to scale it a lot. They want to like scale it 1,000 times or 10,000 times, so anyone will be able to publish data.
You know what's going to be interesting? Let's talk about the business dynamics of this, because on one hand, the cost for L2s is just going to drop a lot. But on the other hand, that's how they're making their money right now. They're not, in fees. On the other hand, if the mainnet costs are so low, well, why are you going to even go to an L2? Maybe you'll still go to Base because there's all these features. You're connected to Coinbase. They have all this great tooling.
Exactly.
They have all these users. But I mean, what's going to happen to the other ones? Like, are they going to be around? Like, how are they going to keep the lights on?
It's actually it's going to be very interesting to see this dynamics, because as you said, Jack, right? This thing is it's actually happening now. It dropped fees dramatically. Ethereum transfer is now, as I said, $0.25 cent, and then also they're having the schedule is gonna increase and increase and increase. They will definitely, for sure, like for the next couple of years, the transfer costs on Ethereum will be almost zero. The question is, you have now Ethereum and Base, and you have on Base 18 million transactions per day, and you have on Ethereum now 2 million transactions per day. With Base, you have the UI, you have lots of like nice things that you may not actually have so nice on Ethereum. So it does create a little bit of a drama. Because now, like, okay, the transaction fee is zero both on Ethereum and on Base. Which one is going to be chosen by? Are these like 18 million transactions per day running now on Base? Are they going to get back to Ethereum? And that's an interesting question, because the product market fit is not only transaction fees. They're now they're everywhere low now, right? Like on Solana, low, like whatever, Polygon, low, So it's just a part of it. But
one thing that's like, look at Scale, for example. Scale still, we've had 52 million transactions in the last 30 days. Like, why? Because we have good unit economics. We have low prices. Price per transaction is really low on Scale. And it's just proof that like low cost helps. But I also think, like, are we just relying on that? I think if Scale, like my business strategy personally is, and I think Stan, you agree with this, like you're not going to be if your only, weapon is cost optimization and speed, you're screwed, because everybody's going to get fast. Everyone's going to get low cost. That's why privacy is going to matter so much. And like,
absolutely,
it's going to, and hey, where people pay more for privacy. You know what? And the only way to, not one, like, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, you have to have something different, but two, if the cost is going to zero, well, what are people going to actually pay for? I think they're going to pay for privacy.
Totally, Jack. And I think that I think one thing which we can say, that we've been trying to find this kind of a magic bullet. We started with byte phase 1. We started with MEV, and I think MEV is incredibly important thing, and people need to solve this problem. But once we started working on byte phase 2, we entered this privacy confidentiality realm. We're just realizing it is way bigger. MEV is great. Byte phase 1 was good, but byte phase 2 is just seems to be, we just see how much momentum it has, especially with like X402, all of the things. And so we're seeing this, and we're trying to adjust on the fly. And the part of the adjustment is we decided that we make priority byte phase 2 priority, we make encrypted token priority, and it actually may be something for the next market cycle that clearly differentiates us.
Well, and what we did is just product market fitting. And what the nice thing is, hey, we already had trusted execution environments in scale. We already had DKG. We already had threshold encryption. We had all the building blocks. We just needed to massage them together. But we went out and phase 4, original byte phase 4, we were up pitching all this other stuff, and people were like, give me that one. Or maybe it was not phase 4, maybe it's part of phase 3. I know we don't need to do FHE.
Absolutely.
We listen to we listen to builders, right? We listen to people, and they're like, give me that. Some of the world's biggest companies we've met with, and they've been like, oh my God, if you can give me that, I'll actually use stable coins for X, Y,
also,
Z.
I think it's we kind of realized it in the process because it's a complex thing. So we started with byte phase 1. Then we realized that we could encrypt things in storage, the smart contracts could decrypt. Every time, we kind of research things, it was like a bit of a progress. And at some point, by doing it like these small steps, we realized that we can actually have encrypted balances, and we can have reasonable security in the sense that we decrypt these balances really fast. This can be done in SGX, protected. We then process the transfer, add or subtract, or it could be like Uniswap, whatever it needs to be done, like exchange, and then encrypt back and store. So we realized we could do it without FHE. And FHE is fantastic, but it's incredibly hard to run because it's computationally costly, and it's also very inflexible. Like every single thing needs to be done it needs so much engineering. With what we now have in byte phase 2, we have encrypted token, but tomorrow we can have encrypted Uniswap, and day after tomorrow we can have encrypted Poly market. All of these things become reasonably easy from the engineering perspective, and also reasonably easy for you to use by users. While FHE it's a fantastic technology, but it takes incredible amount of computation, and it's so hard to develop. Everything is like a PhD in crypto becomes like, how do you do encrypted token? Okay, like tomorrow you need to have an encrypted poly market, another PhD in crypto. So it's just incredibly heavy, it's it's a startup. We'll be happy to use it anytime we find it useful, and they will be definitely, and it's a fantastic projects. I think I really personally like Zama. I think they're doing a fantastic job for FHE, and we looked at their libraries, and we definitely will add them at some point. But what we see, we can actually do like the easy thing first, and then FHE becomes easier, definitely.
I mean, privacy is, and we'll get to the announcement here in a minute, but it's definitely the future. So, hey, one thing I want to say, it's interesting because Stan and I, we know the Solana founders really well and a lot of their leadership. We also know the Ethereum leadership well. And I have to say, I met with Tomasz, Ethereum's co-president of the foundation, in Korea earlier this year. And I've known him for a while. And I got to say, like, he got me, here's something that I didn't like about Ethereum Foundation before. Here was scale. We had all this funding. We had all these people. We're like, we're here to help you. And it was like so many people like us, like they just didn't, instead of being like, oh, wow, yeah, please come build in help us grow. It was kind of this, no, we know what we're doing. And the old, I won't say who it was, but the old leadership, like, I think I met this person 5 times, and each time she was like, who are you? And I'm like, What do you mean, who am I? Like, I'm a founder building in your area that's raised, we've raised like $50 million and you don't know my name and I've met you 5 times. Like, whereas Tomasz is just like, how can we help? What can we do? like, and that's the type of leadership you need. So I think they're a lot better off now that they did a little reshuffle. Sometimes that helps. And I also see Solana digging in, and I think those ecosystems are doing well. And the cool thing about Scale lately is that we have Expand. We can actually go build a Solana instance and run Scale on top of Solana and become a partner and bring privacy to them and speed and run Scale chains. And guess what? We still get SKL holders still capture the same amount of value because people are paying the same amount of SKL no matter where it is. If it's on top of Ethereum in the current Scale instance, on top of Base, top of Solana. So it's kind of interesting for us. We get to become partners and bring differentiated value to these ecosystems while they try to kill each other. They nicely try to kill each other.
Yeah, I think I actually mean that's kind of a good thing about capitalism. When it starts, even it's not just this. I mean, when it starts, people tend to be a little weird. Like when Steve Jobs started famously Apple, then something went wrong, and then Microsoft, appeared as a competitor. And in a sense, competition was good because then you have Microsoft, and then later Steve Jobs came back to Apple, created, Mac, OS 10, whatever. So I think when you have monopoly initially, there's a little bit of a problem because you're a monopolist. It's good to have some competition. Now, I think things are way more healthy. The Ethereum Foundation, I think, tremendously changed. What they're trying to do is totally makes sense. I think Solana, it has always been doing very well in executing. I think that was a strong point about them initially. From the beginning, they were executing really strongly. Mm-hmm. And now you have Base, and you have Polygon, right? And so you have now actually the actual space is very healthy, and now you have I think reasonable people, and you have also people that want to grow their ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Base definitely wants to grow the ecosystem. Now Ethereum Foundation is actually way better. So actually, mm-hmm. The market is like shit, but even though the market is not doing well, there are many things which are actually good. It's actually nicer, and then people don't have so much money. And they don't spend so much money, but they're actually becoming much more frugal and realistic. I think.
Well, and the other thing is for builders like us or our peers, there's a lot of smart people, by the way, that Stan and I hold in high regard. Other founders mm-hmm. that we know are real builders that aren't getting the credit they deserve. But mm-hmm. those people, how do you win? Well, it's hard to win when everything's going up, and mm-hmm. People are just. It isn't real fundamentals driving value. You just win by having to do all this hype bullshit, mm-hmm. incentive bullshit. The way, frankly, I think now all these people, all of our peer, these cohorts, all these other real builders, it kind of takes, the Phoenix has to rise out of the ashes. Like the thing has to burn down a bit, or you're never going to be able to, the cream won't rise to the top. So I think it's painful, but to me, I feel like it gives a huge opportunity for the real builders who are going to deliver, but you got to execute. You got to know what's going to hit. You have to be ahead of the trends, but not the hype trends, the trends for builders, the things that are going to be used. And we're finally, I think, getting to that point. Absolutely. I feel good about it.
Absolutely. It's actually, I've been like through many startups, and I've seen these ups and downs, and it's actually to a certain degree quite typical what is happening. There are many good things which are happening, and the market, I think, the market is definitely depressed. And when the market is depressed so much, there are many good things that happen. That if the market would be top, the market would go crazy. Mm-hmm. But the market just depressed and doesn't notice things. Literally, you have new technologies, you have improvements all over the blockchain ecosystem. You have better people. You people who were just speculators left, definitely. So I mean, there are many good things. Just the market is just like, but it's going to change at some point. It's always like.
But it's the beauty is that it's actually maybe going to level. Like I look at some of our competitors or some of these other chains. Like there's one I was looking at today. I was looking at Barachain and it was like these guys. That's without even launching a product, they were raising at 500 million, 700 million valuation. And, their market cap's down, their tokens all time, I think down from $11 to $1 right now, and it's, the market cap's like just over 100 million. I don't know this team. I don't know. Maybe they might be really good at it. They might have great product. I don't know, but it was definitely a lot of hype driving their value. And, so the point is the hype game is kind of ending. This attention economy is potentially less important and fundamentals are more important. We've been saying it for a while, but frankly, it takes some pain to go through that growth.
Absolutely. And Jack, I think also we've been like talking for a long time when the market was up, people didn't really care about technology, if a startup has technology or not. But the market is down. A startup needs to pivot or change direction or invent something new, right? That's usually the playbook. If the startup did not have technology in the first place, there's no way to do it because they didn't have it in the first place. It was just pure hype play. So the only thing for it to happen to do is to die, essentially. So actually during the bad times, actually, if you have some deeper things, they help you more than during the hype times, because during the hype times, no one cares. It's just like everything goes up. And I think we're just seeing these things. And I think, I don't want to be like, like a bad guy, but you will see the Darwinian extinction, definitely really fast. I think you will see just teams disappearing, people leaving. You see it now already.
And the one interesting thing about Darwin is one of the theories around extinction is that it defines evolution. Right? Yeah. If you don't evolve and adapt, you die. The world doesn't stay the same. We're not just like huge 100-foot dinosaurs walking around, There's birds flying around that have figured out how to adapt, and they used to be dinosaurs, like
absolutely.
It's you've got to adapt, and that's and if you don't, different skills are being rewarded. And Stan and I think have been way stronger at building and selling and getting product market fit than doing the hype game. And so for me, it's like I feel like in people in our community, people in general, like this hype skill set was so valued. I think it's going to be less valued, and it'll always be valued. You got to have get awareness. It's an attention economy, but you got to bring the heat. You got to bring the real value.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And we're trying. I think that
we've been trying. Which, Dan, let's announce Byte Phase 2, formal announcement. We've changed the Byte phases and based off, real feedback from real businesses, real customers, real partners.
Absolutely. We tried, I think people noticed we've been trying pretty much the entire year to find the direction for us to differentiate and to win, essentially. And so what we started with MEV, with Byte Phase 1, and we thought that we always understood that it's great to have encrypted tokens, encrypted balances, encrypted data, but we thought it was really hard to do. And basically, we kind of postponed it to fully homomorphic encryption, Byte Phase 4. But then by doing Byte Phase 2, adding this thing and that thing, we just had a number of incremental improvements and kind of thoughts, ideas that they just came one after another. And we last couple of weeks, we kind of had the last batch of these things, where we realize now that having Byte Phase 2, we can have incredibly better encrypted data and tokens than anyone else. And so it's not just encrypted things, because you have things like Monero, right? For instance, where that data is private. But if any of you guys, you ever use Monero, you know how hard is it to use. The UI is just next level of complexity compared to Ethereum. But then with Monero, another problem is that with Monero, you can just send money. anything you do with Monero, like you want to like have an exchange or you want to have like a prediction market, is going to be like another PhD in computer science, and it will take you like years.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've realized that with Byteface 2 we can have the proper mix. We can have good commercial grade security, so people will be able to pay for coffee. We can have easy enough engineering, so we can, in a fast way, add things like a prediction market. Like we can have partners that will do this prediction market, whatever exchange. Like so we have the right mix where we have something that no one else has, because ultimately, as with Byteface 1, the same with Byteface 2, from the beginning we had these primitives like DKG and all of this BLS. They were part of our blockchain from the beginning, but kind of doing these evolutionary steps, like incremental steps, we built on this platform, and now we have the blockchain which can have encrypted data, and we can give it to developers, and they can use Solidity, and they can do whatever they want without actually becoming PhDs in like ZK proofs or PhDs in like running like like a clusters of FHE, and it's going to be like an easy thing. And I said that's actually, this is a big thing. And then like the problem with the market is like bad, but to be honest, absolutely. The funny thing is that this probably by far our best contribution to computer science we ever made. Because we had always had like scale chains which were provable, fast, and stuff, but it was doing the same stuff that Ethereum was doing. It was helping Ethereum with this great stuff. But this is the next generation thing which no one has. So the funny thing is that we have never been so successful from the point of view of computer science as we are now.
So Stan, let's unpack this a little bit. So number one, I'll just say the simple thing, and then I want you to go deep. So we help Bob send tokens to Alice without anyone being able to see an Etherscan or block explorers, et cetera. What's the balance of Bob? Does Bob have 1 ETH, 10 ETH, 5 scale, 500 scale? And when Bob sends money to Alice, let's say Bob sends USDC to Alice, we don't know how much Bob sent. We also look at Alice. We don't know what Alice has. So you can actually transact with people without disclosing information. Now, hey, we can see that Bob sent some money to Alice or some crypto asset to Alice, but we don't know what the amount is, either in the quantity sent or in the balances. But so that's what Byteface 2 enables. How in the hell do we do that? Tell people. How does this work? How does this computer science magic?
Yes, actually, I published this tweet like a couple of weeks ago. You guys can take a look. The tweet which has analogies, and the analogy is that whatever you encrypt, your balance, right? Let's say you have a bank, and you put your golden coins into a bank safe deposit box, right? So you have like money, like gold coins, literally physical coins. You go to a bank, and there's actually, you have a key, and so the bank employee lets you into the room, and then you have the key. You unlock the safe deposit box, put your golden stuff inside, and then no one knows how much gold you have, how much of these golden coins, because they're inside of the safe, right? So that's fantastic. But the problem is, the solution is that how do you transfer? You want to pay Alice, and Alice also has a safe. How do you pay Alice without Alice and you being present? Because you want, if bank is the blockchain, you cannot just come with Alice and with 2 keys, because blockchain needs to do it for you. It's not that you are actually moving the money. The blockchain needs to move the money. So the bank employees need to be able to move the money from Alice, from your like safe deposit box to Alice safe deposit box. But they don't have your key, and they don't have Alice keys. It's impossible for them to do it in this setup. So what you do then on the safe deposit box, you have another set of like, let's say you're doing like 11 out of 16. So you have 11 holes, and you have 16 trusted bank employees. 11 of them can put 11 like keys into these holes and open the safe in parallel to your key. So you have your key. You can either open the safe using your key always, or they have 11 the multi-sig of 11 of 16 them can open your safe and also Alice's safe. So if you want to send money, you literally tell them to do it. 11 of them come, open your safe, take the money out, whatever, move it to Alice's safe, and lock the safes.
And part of it is it's the fact that they're operating in a secure enclave. Each one of those banks,
exactly.
They have a trust execution environment,
and it happens inside SGX, right?
And
so
how does the like elliptical curve technology come in? Like, how does the like threshold encryption?
Yeah, so basically,
playing a role?
So threshold encryption is this like keys, like 11 out of 16 keys that open the bank. So basically, if you have a scale chain and you have a scale node, none of them will be able to decrypt the balance. But 11 out of 16 get together using threshold encryption, and they decrypt the balance, but it's inside the SGX, so it's protected. It's decrypted but protected, you know. And then inside of SGX, it's actually the balance is manipulated because you need to subtract from your balance, you need to add to Alice's balance, but then it's immediately encrypted again. So it's the tiny, like literally a millisecond when the things exist in plain text, and they only exist in plain text inside the SGX. Other than that, other than this microsecond that it takes to subtract and add, you know, and re-encrypt, everything you see on blockchain is encrypted. So there's absolutely no, and that's a huge thing. But then it allows you to keep, and this is super important, to keep the existing UIs. You can keep MetaMask. You just can do like a little plugin to MetaMask because if you want to see your balance, you need to be able to use your key to decrypt your balance and see it. So there are some small tweaks that you need to do to MetaMask, to Block Explorer, but the user experience won't change. So after these small tweaks, you'll have your MetaMask, whatever other wallet. You'll see your balance. You won't know all of these things will be hidden from you. So your user experience you won't see if you know how to use Ethereum.
You almost may need to have a special wallet.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, like a special layer on top. Yeah.
So
which, you know, for agents is not a big deal. So a big piece of what we're focusing is this agent marketplace, agent markets. And frankly, agents are pretty good at getting the right software to use products.
Version is going to be simple for people that use MetaMask. There will be a plugin. MetaMask has snaps. MetaMask plugin.
So we can just snap that in. Oh, perfect.
So overall, users, or you can later like add fork MetaMask and add like this a pull request to MetaMask for our network. So there will be small changes, but the point is that the Monero cannot do it because with Monero, you need to use absolutely different technology, different wallet. You need to like save your keys. It's totally crazy, and that's kind of the first ever thing that actually is easy to do. And then basically then someone comes to us and says, okay, now I want to do like encrypted Uniswap. Encrypted Uniswap will actually function exactly in the same way, in the sense that you want to use your Uniswap, but balance is encrypted, so it's decrypted. Uniswap is used, and it's re-encrypted. So the entire procedure is very, very generic. So just for transfers, you can pretty much do anything like that. Essentially, things are encrypted. You decrypt them. You do whatever the app needs to do, and encrypt them back. So and it's kind of easy to explain to developer. You don't have to be a PhD in computer science to understand this. Decrypt, you know, and you provide Solidity language library to do it.
So hey Stan, I'm getting some. We got to talk about Bitcoin for a second before the show ends. There's some interesting BTC stuff, and I'm getting pinged by some people that want to hear our thoughts on it. But hey, you heard it here first. That's Byteface 2. You can read about it in the Skill forum. Falcor, even though he's incredibly sick, he's still working. He's a trooper. He'll maybe post some of these forum posts on this thread. But I'm excited about it. And the cool thing is we can bring it to Base. We can bring it to Solana. We can bring it to Ethereum. We can bring the power of encryption other places, and still people have to pay the same amount, and developers have to pay the same SKL anywhere. Absolutely. We can have our cake and eat it too.
And one thing which I forgot to mention, but is also really important, is that Byteface 2 is compatible with existing scale chains. So what we are doing after we actually have QA, we will have the capability to upgrade any of the existing scale chains. to byte phase 2. It will just work, and it will not just be a software upgrade, and it won't disrupt the chain. The chain will start working, but we'll be able to do it. And we'll be able to also connect each of the existing scale chains to the chain of our choice. Solana, it's how community decides. We'll have the engineering capacity to do it, ability, but any of the existing scale chains will be upgradable to byte phase 2, meaning that it will become immediately confidential and private, and we'll have the ability to connect it to on our choice, to Solana or to Ethereum or like to Base or whatever.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin. Like people I think like hearing our takes on this. I like talking about it. So here's a funny thing. I Google Bitcoin price because just to see what the hell shows up. And it's funny, two completely different points that are, I think, probably politically motivated. So one of them, I see New York Times, Bitcoin price predicted sky high prices, or Bitcoin's predicted sky high prices have not panned out. Almost the exact same time, right next to it in the top stories, faster than most expect. BlackRock CEO issues enormous price prediction from Forbes. Like, how could you have two? These are two, Forbes and New York Times, two of the top, global like publishing entities, and like completely different predictions. But hey, Bitcoin, if you woke up on like Monday morning, that was that getting kicked in the stomach feeling. It like completely cratered. But then guess what? Vanguard says, hey, we're going to enable Vanguard. By the way, financial advisors all over the country use Vanguard as like the, product to essentially give price, exposure to markets through their different Vanguard products. It's one of the biggest, almost like B2B products sold through like wealth advisors in the country. In B2B, meaning it's a financial product. There's a bunch of financial products. They got Vanguard Mutual Fund, Vanguard, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? They can all of a sudden use Bitcoin. That means so many people get Bitcoin access now. That I think helped. But I think also, these things are shaken out. Is it a 4-year cycle? Is it not? But it's just hilarious to see such incredibly different takes. Sam, what do you think? What's your latest thoughts on?
I actually read some interesting numbers yesterday. There are actually things which are improving every day about Bitcoin. So, for instance, if you take a look at the number of the volume of transfers, like people sending Bitcoin, people send about $1 trillion of Bitcoin per quarter. So this like. It could be different reasons why they send. Sometimes they send commercial, sometimes they send it from one exchange to another, but it's pretty big, $1 trillion per quarter. As an example, Visa has about $4 trillion a quarter of transfers. So what this is evidence that Bitcoin is now mainstream, and then it's going to grow. I think the way these transfers are going to grow is now these transfers many of them are very large. So Visa are small transfers and Bitcoin transfers are large chunks. So the way I think it's going to grow is by going from large transfers to smaller. But then we actually getting into privacy because so this is growing, but I think the question becomes if Bitcoin needs to have more transfers, needs to become more like Visa. It's almost like there has to be privacy. I think so because Visa is private, and I think that actually comes coming back to this point that the way Bitcoin will actually need to evolve is that Bitcoin will be transferred to private chains. Bitcoin is just an asset, right? And so Bitcoin will actually go to private chains like byte phase 2. And then what's going to happen when Bitcoin lives on those private chains, then the smaller transfer will skyrocket. And then I think when there will be smaller transfers, there will be less volatility for Bitcoin because if you have like US dollar, people pay for coffee and things. So the small transfers, there will be much less volatility. Bitcoin will become much more conservative in a sense. The growth curve won't have less of this like crazy ups and downs because of like industry. So I think it's clearly that is actually it's like a disconnect, I think, between, and the problem is as journalists, I think sometimes journalists need to actually dig deeper, because in many cases they say today they say okay it's going up, tomorrow they say it's going down, but it would be actually much nicer for them to actually get deeper and explain how the industry is evolving, because ultimately price is like, it's the consequence of what's happening in the industry.
Yeah. So here's another interesting take on this. Bitcoin's finding its place in the world. You're not going to use, in 2014 in San Francisco, you could take a taxi with Bitcoin. You could buy a pizza with Bitcoin, and that you were basically spending like, $1,000 on a pizza. And today, if you would have held that, you lost a lot of money each pizza you bought. Now other things like stable coins can serve the same purpose. So Bitcoin's really found its value in being a store of value. But the problem is, I think it's still connected so tightly to equity markets. So if Nvidia drops, Bitcoin drops. Then let's look at gold. Gold is typically a hedge against equity markets. And if you're worried about inflation, if you're worried about also like our equity market's going to crash, or you go to gold, gold's market cap right now is 29.5 trillion. Bitcoin's market cap is like 15 times lower, roughly, under 2 trillion. And 1.85 trillion or something. Is that, hold on, it's 1.95 trillion. And so the thing about gold and Bitcoin is, what can you use either one of them for? Frankly, nothing. Like, you could wear gold on your finger. I've got like a gold wedding ring here, but like, what is gold worth? It's worth what the next person will pay for it. And why? Because we need places to store value that aren't in our daily currency. And I think if you like go with that assumption, and you go with the assumption that like, then also, well, Bitcoin is a much more efficient way of gold. Gold has a shitload of gold stored some places. We don't really even know if it's there, how much of it's there, as it backed up. But, so I think the fact that gold has gone up so much just shows how much market share Bitcoin has to catch up.
Absolutely. And this is, I think it's share of people, different people. I was just thinking about this, because you asked a question, right? Like Bitcoin is supposed to be a hedge against the like equity, right? But it doesn't work like this. So when equity drops, gold usually goes up, but Bitcoin goes down. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You're asking the question why it's happening. And I think one of the reasons is that people that held Bitcoin in the past, they were more like technology investors. So when people that hold gold are retirees. If you're a retiree, you're a pension fund, and there's like this portfolio scheme, usually whatever, some 10%. There's like a number that you have to invest in gold. So gold investors are people, pension funds essentially, right? Or long-term investors of other types. Bitcoin investors are technology. They used to be. They are probably even now technology investors. So people that buy Bitcoin are people who buy like Nvidia, and that's why when Nvidia drops, they have the same people.
Yeah. It's like people are more trying to speculate rather than go for safety. And gold has this product market fit of safety and storage. And hey, like the path is like, hey, you don't want to be in gold when Nvidia is ripping, be in these tech equities. Get into gold to like weather the storm. They've been able to kind of capture both of those things, where Bitcoin is a store of value that frankly is still just being tied to, but when that break happens, I think that's the big moment. That's where you see Bitcoin, being half the market cap of gold. Maybe it goes up 5-10x still in the next couple of years, when it can finally essentially like decouple from the exposure of equity markets. It's a hedge against equity markets.
I totally agree, Jack. I think also it's an age thing. So historically, probably like people that hold gold are older, like people compared to like people that hold Bitcoin. So Bitcoin still needs to penetrate older, age populations, and the people that are older tend to be slower to adopt new things. Maybe I'm ageist, but anyway. But it's just usually.
I think you're right. But you know what? Like, let's call out something else that's interesting. Over the next 25 years, $124 trillion is going to be transferred through inheritance. Okay.
Yeah.
Poor people have $124 trillion right now.
Yeah.
And in the next 25 years, and they're thinking about 106 of 124 trillion is going to go to heirs, and 20 trillion will get donated through charities. That's just how a lot of foundation structures work. So it doesn't get taxed. You have to make some donations. And hopefully people want to donate their money, not all just, give it to their kids. But look at that. Like, if that much money is getting passed down, are these people going to buy gold or Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's I think that definitely Bitcoin, Jack, and I think that that's simply something which is going to happen. So it's definitely, I mean, for sure, what would you do, right? It's just, I think at least the people at least will change probably some proportions. Maybe people buy a little gold, a little Bitcoin, but it's definitely something which is going to happen, and it takes time. But then there is also advisors, financial advisors. So it needs to penetrate all of these ecosystems, which are kind of slower. Like people retire, financial advisors tell them something, and it's kind of, these things tend to go slower.
Instead, I think kind of one final point on all this from me, and then want to hear if you have one too. But it all can be drawn back to nutrition. Okay. The way our bodies work. Guess what tastes good? Sugar. Oh, and you could have a sucker or a candy bar. You can have a Snickers bar and a Coca-Cola. You're going to have about a minute of fun, and your blood sugar is going to spike, and then your blood sugar is going to drop. And then you don't have any nutritional value. People are seeking the quick win, whether it be in token incentive structures, in investments, in, business strategies. But what really makes value? You talk about, hey, well, it's going to be slow. It's going to take a little while. That's your meat and vegetables. We need our meat and vegetables. We need our fish and our vegetables. We need protein and slow carbs, not sugar, for our bodies to be healthy, and also for businesses to be healthy. The ones that are going to work are going to be the ones that actually bring real value, that have nutritional value, that don't give you immediate, it's not the quick money. It's not the immediate spike. And in a way, there's an interesting analogy across both Bitcoin, crypto assets, equity markets, AI markets, and nutrition. Okay, my crazy take.
Absolutely. I think just another number which I read to this point, I think another crazy number I read yesterday, not even read, asked ChatGPT, the world's gambling industry, asked ChatGPT what's the revenue. And it's crazy. It's $1 trillion per year is the revenue of the gambling industry. So you have Bitcoin, which is 2 trillion, you just said, right? But it's just the entire Bitcoin, and per year gambling industry earns $1 trillion. And that's unfortunate, because these people, it's just, I think the government, the little people in the school, they need to have some financial education. And people in the school need to be told that, buy Bitcoin, cost average, don't gamble. Because unfortunately, the society, someone needs to tell people, because it's an instinct. It's just a sugar, right? They gamble and they spend $1 trillion per year. They essentially lose this $1 trillion, right? If they would be, instead of doing this, just dollar cost averaging Bitcoin, maybe also gold, it doesn't have to be only Bitcoin. So there has to be, the society actually needs to explain people that crypto, there's a good part of crypto hodling, and there's a part which is speculating. And if you are speculating, guess what? You will never win, because there are people that every time you speculate, there are people that take some fee. And the same is gambling, right? So no one is gonna get super wealthy by doing perpetuals or doing 20x ever, short-term trading, fighting other guys. And it's something that, and unfortunately, that's where the market is now a little bit. But I think people, what we need to do, and what we're trying to scale, we're good guys, right? We're trying to find the application of blockchain which is good for people. Not just gambling.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to somebody, one more sidebar. I was at House of Web3 yesterday in San Francisco, and we're talking about X402 and talking about privacy with X402 and agentic payments. And it was like, what is the low hanging fruit? Well, and then it was like, it's kind of funny because it's like gambling and porn usually drive a lot of early tech adoption. Well, what's somewhere where people want to have like privacy?
Yeah.
Their agents pay for them. Those two categories.
Yeah, and it's like
sadly, it's sad. I'm not saying that's where anyone should target, but those markets are going to just gobble up these new features.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I think when people watch porn, at least they're getting something. I don't know what people get when they like do gambling.
You know what's sad about gambling is like, if you just think of it as entertainment, then then great, you're just getting entertainment. But the sad thing is a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to make all this money gambling, so then I can go entertain myself, and then I'm going to go buy all this stuff. And it's like, well, just take all the money you gamble and go buy this stuff, But hey, that's why the industry exists. We're humans. We're reptile brains. We like. There's a thing that does it for people. I don't gamble just because I'd rather spend the money on other stuff. But
the society, I think, like that's the society needs to educate people. It's about education. There has to be financial education. I think in the States, here in Europe, it exists. Maybe it's not perfect. I think in many like countries which are developing countries, unfortunately, gambling and all of this stuff.
And it's weird. Like, say the market's in a weird place. Like, unemployment's really high. People are like, don't want to just work at McDonald's. They're like, no, I want to make a lot of money. And so people are speculating. I think it's like symbolic to where society is a little bit. And but yeah, like I think, hey, I'm an optimist. I feel like you never before were you able to educate yourself in the way you can now. Never before can you build things the way you can build them now. We're at a point where I'm excited.
I'm totally excited. The same, Jack. I also hope that that the blockchain industry needs to kind of get together in a sense that if you have lawyers, you have this bar association, and lawyers kind of have their own like rules. They're not prescribed by the government. They're just like rules of behavior. Doctors the same. They're not imposed by the government, right? It doesn't have to be government. I think like we need to get to the point, and it's probably going to happen where there has to be some like set of what people do, what's considered like good or bad, and then people that want to do other things, they need to like split to do other things. I think that would be really good, because something we discussed last time is that the market is actually like, you go to Coinbase, CoinGecko, or CoinMarketCap, and you see all of these projects. Some of them like hype coins, some of the tech guys, some of them are gambling guys, some of them like like hodling Bitcoin. Very different. I think it has to be like different sides, literally like different very different technologies, and very different also markets. So
yeah. Well, one thing is for certain: when you and I don't have Ben with us, we're not good at staying on time or on topic. So we're better with Ben. Because I just realized we're 16 minutes over, but that's kind of what happens when Stan and I talk. We're just
I push for actually staying longer. I see some people on Twitter like staying like for days. Like, I don't know exactly if you will be able to do it. I sometimes I get to Twitter, and then like a couple of hours later I get to Twitter again, and the same person is like
still talking.
How is this person able to do it? It's like a single person. Like,
I don't know. I feel like an hour takes it. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. You go lay down for 5 minutes or just get another cup of coffee.
So what time is it now in San Francisco, Jack?
It's 10:15.
So you woke up early, and then you had the thing. While for me, it's actually pretty optimal. It's like starts 5 p.m.
It's good but I gotta say, like 9 a.m. on a Wednesday is like peak time for me. I'm like in the zone. I've been up for a couple hours. I'm like, have my coffee. We do another one like over happy hour sometime. You just be up late, and we'll have like a glass of wine. Well, hey, this was fun. We'll have the man, the myth, the legend back next week. Tune in to see Ben. Our boy Ben will be back. But hey, thanks everybody for listening. If you have topics you want us to talk about, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, on X. And we're always excited to dig into different things.
And also Scale Forum, guys, all of the things that we're discussing. Actually, the Scale Forum has been really, really like having lots of content recently.
Yeah, I love
lots of
that.
interesting discussions. Just go and discuss if you want to talk to us. I think that's really great way to connect to Scale Forum.
Yeah. And I mean, just read stuff. I like that we're building in public so much. Like when I'm like, hey, how does this work? I can just go read it. Oleg writes something. I'm like, all right, now I know like the exact nuances of what we're building from a cryptographic perspective. Okay. All right, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our best.
See you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.